I'm Jason UFC, and today we have a story about UFC light heavyweight contender Alex Pereira explains why he expects his fight versus Jiri Procházka to be easier than his win over Jan Błachowicz. Pereira is expecting a more favorable matchup next time out. A new powerful pair of fists have arrived in the UFC light heavyweight division last month at UFC 291. Former UFC middleweight champion Alex Pereira made the walk for the first time as a UFC light heavyweight contender 205 division. And in Salt Lake, Alex Pereira jumped right into the fire against ex-divisional champion and top 5 contender Jan Błachowicz. The pair went the distance inside of the Delta Center, completing 3 consecutive rounds that left scores split across the community. It was ultimately Putin Alex Pereira who earned the nod of 2 judges on the scorecard. With that, Alex Pereira has entered the rankings at ranked number 3, in the UFC light heavyweight division and is expected to compete for the vacant title, the UFC light heavyweight vacant title next. When Pereira does so, it will almost certainly be against another UFC light heavyweight finest in Jiri Procházka, who actually vacated the UFC light heavyweight championship last year. Okay, Pereira says Jiri Procházka will expose himself. Procházka hasn't competed in action since a title-winning performance against Glover Teixeira last June in Singapore. The result extended Procházka's perfect promotional record to 3-0 and established him as the first Czech UFC champion. Since then, Procházka had to relinquish the UFC light heavyweight championship, undergone shoulder surgery, and completed a very lengthy period of rehabilitation. Procházka gears up for his long-awaited return. Many are expecting Procházka to pick off where he left off at. Okay. Pereira, however, is very confident in stifling the Czech Procházka star unique offense on the feet, where he expects the majority of their expected championship contest to take place. Because of that, Pereira actually sees Procházka as an, quote, easier opponent for him than the man against who he made his light heavyweight debut, Jan Błachowicz. This is what Alex Pereira says. I always analyze some things when I'm helping someone. In this case, I was helping Glover Teixeira ahead of UFC 275, so I've already studied Procházka, Pereira said. But from when he was going to fight Glover, it's different now, the strategy. But I've seen some things there. I'll tell you, it's a tough fight, okay? But this is what Alex says. But I think, and some people won't agree, Jan was a tougher fight, Pereira continued, because Jan has that grappling game, and it makes it a bit harder for me, makes my striking less effective. But I think it will be different with Jiri. I think he'll come to fight on the feet. I don't think he's the kind of guy who will come to grapple. He's a guy who will expose himself more. I think it will be a dangerous fight, but I believe the matchup is a better for me than Jan Błachowicz. This is kind of interesting. Even though I'm a MMA casual, it's kind of ironic that the example Pereira uses is that he helped Glover train for the Jiri fight. Jiri ended up defeating Glover Teixeira. And not only did he defeat Glover Teixeira, it wasn't a knockout, it wasn't like a TKO, but he submitted Glover Teixeira in the 5th round of their fight. Glover Teixeira actually defeated Jan Błachowicz by submission. So it's a little bit ironic that Jiri not Yuri, that Alex thinks that, Yuri isn't going to grapple him and things like that. Because, like I said, Yuri has some submission abilities, and he submitted Glover in the 5th round of what most people believe that Yuri was losing that fight. All, I don't say all four rounds, but I believe he was down on a scorecard. So that was like a come from behind victory. So obviously Alex Pereira is prepared for the ground game, but if he thinks he's going to go into this fight and this fight is just going to be strictly a stand-up striking affair, you can check the records. Yuri can submit people on the ground, so may not see too many takedowns in this fight. But if the fight does go to the ground, Yuri does have submission abilities. We just have to see what Yuri looks like. I think Dana White came out, UFC President Dana White came out last year when Yuri had to relinquish his UFC light heavyweight championship. And he said something like it was the worst shoulder injury the UFC has ever seen or something like that. We haven't heard much from Yuri since then or anything like that. So we have to see what Yuri looks like in his first fight. This fight has not been booked yet. Alex fought, and I believe, when was it March or April? I'm gonna say April. Alex Pereira fought in the UFC middleweight division. He got knocked out by Israel Adesanya in the 2nd round. It was a vicious fight. I personally thought it was a little too soon for Alex to come back after a 2nd round knockout and fight someone with, the ability of Jan Błachowicz, the Polish power. But he ended up winning that fight. Alex did in August. So the Yuri and Alex fight has not been booked. Was that in August? I can't remember. I think it was in August. It may have been in June because all these months are like coming together. I think it was in July, actually. The Pereira versus Błachowicz fight, that may have been in July. But the fight versus Jiri Procházka has not been booked yet. I don't know if Yuri's back in training or anything like that. Like I said, I'm an MMA casual. I don't keep up with everything, all things MMA, but I don't know if Yuri is back in training. Has he been cleared to fight? Is this a guarantee that Yuri is next in line or anything like that? I'm assuming it should be that, but like I said, I haven't heard or seen any training video of Yuri. But Alex is basically number 1 contender. He will be the at least one contender in that fight. But like I said, we have to keep an eye on the dates. Will that fight be happening in December or January of next year? Like I said, Alex already fought twice this year, so we're waiting for, how does Alex feel after that fight in July. So we'll see what happens there, and we have to see what happens with Yuri. When is he cleared? When is he back in training? And when is he ready to fight? But let me know your opinion of this fight. Who do you think is going to win? Like I said, I find it a little ironic that Alex says that he thinks the fight versus Yuri is going to be, did he say easier or more favorable of a matchup? Because, like I said, Yuri submitted Glover Teixeira, and Glover Teixeira submitted Jan Błachowicz. And it was a close decision with Alex. He didn't look bad in the light heavyweight division. He's a big boy anyway. So it will be a great fight. We just have to wait for the details of when these two competitors will actually enter the octagon. I don't have a dog in that race. I'm just going to be a fan, and it should be a great fight. Alex Pereira versus Jiri Procházka. But I'm Jason, UFC. Today we had a story about UFC light heavyweight contender. Is he the number 1 contender? Let's just say the number 1 contender. Alex Pereira explains why he expects the Jiri Procházka fight to be an easier fight than the Jan Błachowicz win. That was a split decision win. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the $1 donation button, and please tune in to the next video on this channel. Thanks a million for watching.